Well, hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Coach's Corner, sponsored by Performance Experts Coaching and Leadership 360. I am Tim Brahim. I'm your host, and today I am excited for this bonus interview that we're going to be doing in the final month of the year of 2014 for the Coach's Corner. It's the first time in the year that I've been doing this interview program that I've actually decided that I want to interview an entire team, which is an aggressive endeavor to have 5 other people on the call with me at the same time. We're going to have a great time today. And the team that I've chosen to interview is one that I've become indirectly, intimately aware of over the course of the last year and 3 months or so. It's what I'm going to refer to as Team LeGrand, and I'm not sure if that's what you guys call yourselves, but I think that's actually what you should start calling yourselves, as you guys have had such amazing success in your growth and your production over the last year or so, where we'll talk a little bit about that growth, where you've gone from, roughly, 18 to 20 loans a month, and now you're funding consistently in that 30 loan a month range. And I don't know French, but I think that LeGrand means big. So you guys are a big, strong, powerful team, and you're doing great work, and I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to join us. So Caleb LeGrand is the loan originator. Many of you know who he is. He's been a client of mine now for over a year. It was in Leadership 362, and now we're doing some private work together. And if you haven't listened to his interview from back in the spring of 2014, you definitely want to go back and listen to that as well, because it was a really wonderful interview. Caleb, and to the rest of your team, who I'll introduce in a moment, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day here in December to help teach and to help bring value to the mortgage industry. And welcome.
We're happy to do it.
So we'll start with you, Caleb, and then I'll kind of walk my way through each of the 4 other team members that you have on the call with you. I just want to start by everyone just giving a very brief introduction of, your name, what your job title is, and a brief job description. And Caleb, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So I'm Caleb LeGrand, work at Benchmark Mortgage. Been in the mortgage business for going into my 9th year here now. And the short version of what I do is I sell money. So I'm the originator. It's my job to bring in loans and make it rain. That's what I try to spend most of my time doing. And with the coaching and the work that you and I have been working on, I'm getting better and better at doing that. Thankfully, I've got a team of all-stars here today. With all of them now on this phone call, none of the work's getting done, so I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to do that once we get caught back up. But I'm super excited to have all of them in here, and they can all hear. It really makes things stick around here, because all I do is what I'm told by these awesome ladies.
Well, hopefully the result of this interview isn't that you drop back down to doing 18 loans a month in the month of January.
Yeah. It might.
And Caleb, just to brag a little bit about him, because I've gotten to know him very personally, and we've become, built a very good relationship, and I would say become friends. And Caleb he's just a terrific implementer, and anybody that ever talks to him would know that. He's now the number 2 producer in all of Benchmark, which is a large mortgage operation. He has his team very much to thank for that. He's always reminding me in my calls and my private coaching calls with him as to, just how valuable his team is and how much he appreciates them. So congratulations, Caleb, on your success, and you deserve all of it. You're a pleasure to coach, because from one call to the next, things get implemented very, very gracefully on your end, and we're seeing some pretty substantial results over the last 12 months in the coaching work that we've been doing. So I will now transition to Amanda. And Amanda, if you could be so kind as just introduce yourself and give us a brief overview as to what you do for Team LeGrand.
Well, my name is Amanda Hoover. I am the marketing coordinator, and basically what I do is I set up the file initially. I kind of maintain the database and do most of the scanning.
Did you say most of the scanning? Is that what you said?
The scanning of documents that Mr. LeGrand gets to do his mortgage.
So just to clarify, Amanda, a little bit more deeply, so you're scanning the documents. You're also making sure that the integrity of the information in the database is accurate, and then you're also assisting Caleb and the rest of the team in nurturing and continuing to stay in touch with that database, so those relationships of people that you've done loans for don't become distant and remain intimate. Is that accurate?
That's exactly correct.
Perfect. We're going to want to talk a little bit about some of the cool things that you do as we get into this interview, because I think that that is such a vital and important part of having a long-term successful mortgage operation. Ultimately, your database, to all of you that are listening, becomes your gold mine. And if you're doing your job correctly, and you have someone like Amanda who's assisting you in staying in touch with those people, before too long, you end up having a situation that Caleb's starting to experience, or that I experienced when I was a loan originator, and several other clients that I coach are experiencing, which is that every year you kind of almost have an annuity income stream, a guarantee, if you will, of a certain amount of loans that are going to come in throughout the year, because you've done such a wonderful job for people, and you've done such a wonderful job in staying in touch with them. It's just a matter of time when those people are going to have a need again, and if you've stayed in close communication with them, you're going to be the first person that they think of. Let's transition to Sandra now, if you don't mind, please. You're the client concierge on the team. Can you tell us a little bit about your role and your job description?
Sure. My name's Sandra Higginbotham. I've been with Caleb for 3.5 years. That's as long as I've been in the mortgage industry. I retired from the school system. What I do as client concierge is I really help Caleb stay in touch with the realtors, making sure that we send them something every month, that we meet with them, that we address their needs, anything that we can do to help them if they need help setting up an event or something. I'll track down that information for them, help them do that. I also, excuse me, I also maintain the print material that we have in the office, so I print all the closing booklets and things like that for our clients, information that they're going to be handed out, and anything else that the realtors are going to need, or what we do in the office as far as the marketing packages that we put together. So I kind of make sure all that's up to date and gets where it needs to be.
Wonderful. So Sandra, just what I'm hearing you say is that your main job is not dissimilar from Amanda's in some regards, that Amanda is responsible for assisting your team in staying in close communication with the past clients, and your role just is similar in that you're in charge of adding value and staying in close communication with the referral sources. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how many referral partners do you nurture and stay in communication with on a monthly basis, as you've described?
Right now on our Tier 1 group, we have 18 that we are working with intimately.
Okay, when you say Tier 1, can you define that? Because I'm sure the listener is saying, well, what does that really mean? So it sounds like you've partitioned it off and said, these are the people that we want to really spend a lot of energy on. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Caleb and I have sat down and gone through all of the realtors that have referred to us over the last couple of years, and those who have given us the most referrals, and the ones that we really want to work with and nurture that relationship. So we call those our Tier 1s, and that's where we put most of our effort. Tier 2s, we put effort into them, but not as much. We may send them things on holidays, information as things change, but we don't do as much for them. And then those that are Tier 3s are those one-off realtors that will send us information or referrals.
Got it. Now, give us an idea real quick, if you would please, and if that was a sneeze, bless you. What is it that you – give us an idea or an example of something that you would do on a monthly basis with those Tier 1 realtors, like something you would send to them, or do you pick up the phone and talk to them? Do you ever meet with any of them in person, et cetera?
Well, we do a couple of things. One thing I like to do, and I try to do it monthly, is I just call them pokes, and I send them all a handmade card that is, and the whole team signs it. It's just whatever holiday or what event is going on that month, just to wish them well and hope them health and happiness. And it's just a poke. It's just like, hey, here, we're thinking of you. One of the other things that we do is we try to rotate our Tier 1s through so that we have meetings with them. And we've just decided that we're going to aggregate that out to social and business meetings with them. Social being a lunch, just how's things going, how's your family, talking, enjoying some social time with them. And then another meeting to say, hey, how can we work together? How can we partner? What can we do for you? How can we help in the business? What are your goals? That type of thing. So we also are scheduling that monthly.
Now, do you ever visit these realtors personally, or is it via the phone predominantly?
We visit them personally. Or we invite them to come to our office, which they often do, so that they can meet with the whole team. They seem to enjoy that. And we'll have lunch with them. And sometimes those meetings are social and business at the same time, depending on what their needs are.
And I would imagine, Caleb, excuse me, that Sandra's a part of her role is to also develop rapport and a level of trust and communication with your referral partner, so they're comfortable talking to her as much as they are talking to you. Is that accurate?
That's true, and that's something we've worked on more deeply here since my time from Costa Rica, was coming back and getting clear on it's okay that my realtors like my team as much or more than they like me. So we're working very hard to make sure that those partners are comfortable if they have need of help with an event or sponsoring an open house or putting things together, that they feel comfortable calling Sandra to say, hey, can you help me find a venue or find somebody that can bring food in? So just you're really trying to serve them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Bud. I mean, I think that I probably mentioned this a year and a half ago in Costa Rica when we were together, that the moment that I had that aha experience of my wife, Anna, who was my transaction coordinator at the time, had gone home to have our first child, our son, and my office manager came into my office and said, I have a past client on the phone who wants to refi their loan or buy a new home. I don't remember which one it was, and they're asking for Anna. And I remember feeling, why are they asking for Anna? I mean, I'm the loan officer. And then I realized, wait a minute. This is great. I don't care that they're asking for Anna. I just care that they're asking for somebody, And I think that this is a really important shift that a lot of loan officers should really take a look at. Is how much are you making it all about you? And in turn, by making it all about you, how much pressure are you putting on yourself? And how much are you curtailing your ability for growth? Because you have not yet opened up to the concept of team, and that we can work together to develop relationships, that you as an individual are actually not all that talented to be able to get everybody to like you. I mean, I'm sure there's probably people that like Sandra, referral partners that like Sandra or connect with Sandra would probably be a better way of saying it, more deeply than they connect with you, Caleb. And that's not any discredit to you. It's just that, we're all different.
They work with me because of them, not me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know what? It takes, I want to compliment you, because it takes a much humbler and more of an egoless approach to really embrace this. And for those loan originators that are listening, that are constantly thinking that it has to be about them having the relationship, I know for a fact, and Caleb is validating it now, that it doesn't have to be that way. Sandra, thanks for taking the time to explain that. And I want to earmark that I want to go back to Amanda in a little bit and ask her about a few of the things that she sends out to nurture the past customer database. But now let's go over to Nikki, who I know is the production partner, and I'd like to understand in a little bit more depth, Nikki, what is your job description and role on the team?
Well, I'm Nikki Young, and I am Caleb's production partner. I've been with Caleb for, actually it was 2 years this past week, and that's how long I've also been in the business. Prior to that, I do have a banking background, but it was more of a retail banking background. Basically what I do is I assist Caleb with reviewing and approving loan files to determine if we have loans or not. I help him gather all the supporting documents, and I also meet with all of our clients and administer the loan paperwork.
Okay, so let me clarify that, because we're going to start to put the pieces to this puzzle, so to speak, together after we get done hearing from Kelly and start to really look at the process and the conveyor belt, if you will, that is the person calls in for the first time and then they end up getting a loan from you and it closes, and kind of how does that string together. So what I'm hearing from you, Nikki, is that you're working very intimately with Caleb and the client. Are you taking the 1003?
I am not actually taking the 1003. We have an online application that our clients will either do that, or occasionally I do take the information over the phone, but typically that's done by Caleb.
Mm-hmm. So then are you going through the disclosures with them and kind of pre-underwriting the file, so to speak, and asking for the alternative documentation that might be needed? I know Caleb does a lot of that too, and he's very, very analytical with his CPA background, so he's able to assess that. But give us a little more meat as to what role you're playing in that capacity of pre-submission into processing.
Exactly. That is exactly what I do. I do go through the 1003. When I sit down with the client, I make sure that I have all of their information, make sure that it's all accurate. I look for the everything to pre-underwrite the loan, basically. I get all their 2 years history. I collect all of their income and asset documents when I sit down with them at the appointment, if I don't have it prior to the appointment. So, I do a lot of what Caleb does as far as reviewing everything before it does actually, my file would next go to Kelly, where she would prepare it for final underwriting.
Nikki, are you aware of the fact that you have the most important role on the team, even more important than Caleb and Kelly?
Wow.
Now, this is your cue to ask for a raise.
Got it.
We're going to have to renegotiate my coaching.
in all seriousness, I really do believe that, and to a great degree. And here's why I say that for everyone listening, and for the 5 of you, of course. I am willing to bet any amount of money anybody would like to wager that if you interviewed processors from all across the United States and you asked them, what is the single biggest challenge and disruption to your workflow and headache that you get from processing loans, it would be, I don't get a complete file. When I get the loan for the first time, it has an application that looks like it was written by a doctor, and I can't read half of it, and it has paperwork that's missing, and the loan. Am I hearing you guys laughing in the background?
Yeah, they're all smiling and pointing at me because I have
I'm missing documentation. If it's a broker shop, it's targeted for a lender that can't do the loan. The list goes on and on and on. And processors then are getting kind of a box of rocks, so to speak, rather than a complete, gift that is well structured and ready to rock and roll, so they can provide spectacular service. And then they're spending so much of their time having to try to go back to the client and get documentation that should have been asked for initially. And it not only creates a tremendous amount of inefficiency and lack of productivity, and therefore capacity on how many loans can actually be funded by a team without having to hire more people, but maybe more important than that is that the service levels suffer dramatically to the client and or the referral partners, which is your lifeblood. That's your annuity income stream. If you provide spectacular proactive customer service, people will become addicted to you. All other service platforms that they experience will be inferior if they were to ever do a loan with somebody else. And when they do have that inferior experience, they think of you. And in my opinion, the position that you hold, Nikki, is just so vital in that regard, because, boy, if you pre-underwrite that file and stack it in the right order and really think through with the client the things that you need, Kelly is going to have far more capacity and then be able to use that capacity to just be a dynamite customer service person that results in everybody just being blown away by the time the transaction's over with. So let's transition to Kelly in closing, and then we'll move into some other subject matters. But Kelly, introduce yourself, please. And let me just say before you do, the biggest fan that you have is sitting in that room with you. I mean, my goodness, Caleb really, really appreciates you. He tells me about it on every coaching call, and all of you for that matter, but I know that you guys have been working together for a long time, and he really reveres the work that you do. So please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role.
My name is Kelly Patton. I've been working in the mortgage industry about 17 years, the last almost 5 of them with Caleb. I came to Caleb as an employee by having done a loan with him when I moved here from out of state. And I will say that what you're talking about with Nikki is what I experienced with Caleb, and one of the reasons that I switched employers. I worked for loan officers who could sell anything but couldn't put a file together to save their lives. And it looked like they had played 52 pickup with their file. So I definitely appreciate someone who understands their role and takes it seriously so that I can do mine. And in our team, my role broadly is processor. More specifically, it is organizing all facets of the transaction so that the underwriter gets a complete file that she can issue an approval on, ideally with one pass, that the client is well communicated with and doesn't have to continually bring me things, and that the realtors know, both the listing and selling realtors know what's going on pretty much at all times without ever having to pick up a phone or ask me what's going on. Our perfect loan transaction is one where they just get everything handed to them. They know what's going on, and it gets to closing smoothly and funding smoothly.
Yeah, wow. I just literally got the chills when I heard you say that, and I hope everybody took note of that. That one thing that you said is so vital, and I just want to repeat it, which is that they should never have to call you and ask you what's going on. The borrower and the referral partners. I mean, that's not great customer service if they're calling you and saying, hey, did you submit my loan yet? Or, hey, did we draw docs yet? Or, hey, did the loan fund yet? Not to mention the fact that you're having to react to all of those inbound phone calls and inbound emails, which really slows your day down because you're constantly having to stop what you're doing, be interrupted, and have your day infiltrated by those types of questions. So if we can be more proactive, we eliminate the need to react. It's also really the name of the game as to what makes customer service happen at a totally different level when we're doing it in that capacity. So thank you for bringing that up. And for those on the team that are listening and for those loan officers that are listening, it starts with you as the loan officer. Don't make any mistake about it that, poo-poo is going to roll downhill, okay, just to be a little bit graphic, but I mean, that's just the bottom line. If it starts with, that loan officer that Kelly's describing that can sell anything, but then just kind of turns over a box of paperwork that doesn't make any sense rather than a tight, cleanly packaged file, I mean, everybody else's job is going to become increasingly difficult, which is why I so passionately suggest that you have a flow that is like the one that they're starting to unveil to you right now, which is very similar to what I had with my team, which is the person who is educating and consulting and getting the person to say yes and has an evaluative eye to make sure that they're not spending a lot of time with somebody who isn't going to be able to borrow money from you, and then turns it over to somebody like who we have here in Nikki, who's going to then get granular with the paperwork and the disclosures and the alt doc and the pre-underwriting aspect, who then is going to turn it over to somebody like Kelly, who's going to take it to the finish line. And this is what we call the perfect loan process in my vernacular. So taking to the finish line being, making sure that that second set of eyes is placed on a file, good cover letter is written, that anything that may have been missed in the initial pre-underwriting evaluation by Nikki is caught. So you're getting approvals with as few conditions as possible. So I want to ask you about that real quick, Kelly. It's like how...
And Tim, I want to chime in on that one. I know where you're going with this.
Yes.
I want to brag about them because of all the numbers we track and monitor, this is the thing I'm most proud about, and this is how awesome these girls are. We have a 92% one-touch approval in our submissions, and so everybody's clear on what that means. That means 92% of the files we send up go through underwriting in one pass and are clear to close on when they come out. No steps, no pens, no conditions. And unless somebody thinks that that's because we're spending 6 years on a loan, our average day on loan is 21 business days. So that's how awesome these girls are. 92% pull through with one-touch approvals with average of 21 business days spent on a file.
That's an amazing statistic. That's
yeah. It's the one
I never ran those numbers with my team, but I'm pretty sure that you're outdoing my team, and my team is pretty darn good. But that's spectacular, and congratulations to all of you. But I'm going to turn it over to you in just a second, Caleb. I just want to say one final thing, and we're going to go to kind of the heart of the matter here in terms of how you developed your system and what were some of the challenges you were facing prior to refining it, and what direction are you going forward to try to even make it better. The one thing that I want to say to everybody, and Kelly, feel free to chime in after I make this statement, but underwriters are human beings, and human nature is that you're going to want to migrate towards the work activities that are as least painful as possible. Okay, so one of the things that I had experienced with my team was that we developed such a strong reputation with the underwriters that when they got loans in from us, and they would never admit this, of course, because it would be politically incorrect to do so, but I know that this was the case. When they got loans in from us, you get down to the end of a long day of underwriting files, and you've got a couple of files to choose from. You got one that's got documentation that's all fragmented, and it's from somebody who you historically have had, poor packaging from, and then you've got this loan that you can underwrite that day that's from a team that you're used to working with. They do amazing work. It's a pleasure to underwrite their files. They're well documented. Which one are you going to pick up? I mean, as just human nature, you're going to pick up the one that's going to be the path of least resistance, and you're going to fly through it maybe a little bit more quickly than you normally would, because a level of trust has been created with the underwriter and that team to where they know, like, these guys have it going on and they know what to ask for. Kelly, do you think that there's any benefit that you've seen or experienced, in all honesty, from the expediency and service that you get in underwriting as a result of you guys doing such a great job up front?
Yeah, I know for a fact that there is. Our underwriter will flat out tell you that she's not worried about political correctness, but she is very accommodating when we do need any kind of special assistance with a file, because she knows that our attempts are only to make it easier for her. So if we have scenario questions, she is very willing to work with us and talk to us. If we do need to move something to a funding condition because it's a short close date, she's more willing to do that because she knows we will always provide what we say we're going to provide. It's a reciprocal relationship. If we do a good job for her, she's more than happy to do a good job for us, and she always picks up our files quickly, even as a branch, because this is a branch that fosters that kind of integrity and completeness in our files, so it helps us all.
Yeah, thank you for validating that. Like I said, we experienced that as well, so I'm certainly not surprised that you guys are experiencing that. So let's start to dive in a little. I mean, on the Performance Experts website, there's a video on the perfect loan process. I'm not going to go into the granular detail on that. Also, the 72-step document that is my old perfect loan process is on there, and you can take a look at that. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is we're getting ready to have our first team productivity and customer service workshop here in Southern California on March 5th, 6th, and 7th. And Caleb's team will be here, and I'm super excited to meet all of you in person and to work with you for those 3 days. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is completely making my former perfect loan process obsolete by us masterminding with the 20 or 25 team members from different clients of mine all being together and really thinking out of the box on how we make this even better than what we're currently doing. I mean, that masterminding ability is going to be great. But I know that when you, Caleb, were in Costa Rica, one of your focal points when you were there a year and 2 months ago at the beginning of the Leadership 360 program is you started to really take a look at your system for facilitating loans. As I mentioned earlier, you're doing about 18 to 20 loans a month at that time. Tell us a little bit about, I know that you've spent a lot of time with your team over the last year and really trying to refine this, and it's starting to really take foothold and yield the benefits that you were hoping for. Tell us a little bit about where you were a year and 2 months ago. What were some of the challenges that you were facing? And then maybe all of you can feel free to elaborate and share a little bit about some of the experiences you were having and then how you guys have addressed them and made them better and what the results have been with maybe some of the key strategies that you've implemented to creating a more refined system for servicing your referral partners' clients.
Gotcha. So I'm going to try to answer all of that. So a year and 2 months ago, the biggest thing for me was I was a stressed out control freak. It's in my nature to want to control things, and having people doesn't necessarily change that if you're not willing to delegate or let go. And I think one of the biggest things in the perfect loan process is the system itself won't solve everything. It's having amazing partners on the team in there. So I would encourage anybody who's looking to replicate that to be careful and take your time and make sure that you bring the right people on board, because the right people, which I have, is what's made all the difference. I mean, I'm only as good as the people that are here as my partners, and that's been the biggest thing, because that allowed me that time in Costa Rica getting away for a week was the first time in the 8 years at that time that I've been doing this that I actually felt comfortable taking an entire week off. I couldn't answer my phone because my phone didn't work down there, and I had very, very limited access to email. And nothing died. The world kept spinning, and the girls did an awesome job. And so that was kind of like, maybe all this stuff really does work. And we had a perfect loan process going into Costa Rica, but what I got out of that time was getting much more clear on what it was that I wanted. And I think one of the biggest things that was so helpful for me was the word experience. And it came from, what is the experience you want your referral partners to have? What is the experience that you want your clients to have? Most importantly to me, what is the experience I want my team to have? And then also selfishly, what is the experience I want to have? And asking those questions then allowed me to go back and apply that as a filter through which I went into my perfect loan process, which at the time was good. I mean, we were still doing loans, but it was a lot of stress, and it wasn't as cleanly as I wanted to go, okay, where are the choke points and where are the problem points that we can address, and how can we fix and correct these? And so one of the things we've been working on the last year and 2 months very, very diligently is every week going through where can we improve, where do things not go well, what can we refine, but also doing that within the grand scheme of what is it that's the end goal that we're working towards to make sure that everything's rolling up to accomplish that end goal of what we want. And the benefit for that with that clarity, and that really is a very powerful word, but never really understood the meaning of in terms of how much that was helping, was by getting super clear on what it was we were after. It made the decision-making process much, much easier. So instead of being the typical loan officer, which I'm still guilty of this, which is, ooh, shiny bubble, it's I know what I'm after, I know what I want, and I'm working very, very diligently with all the skills I have on implementing in my work ethic to make that happen. And then I've been doubly blessed because I've got rock stars. I mean, they really do an awesome job.
Let me summarize a few things that I heard you say here, just to perception check and clarify. So the first thing that I heard you say is that there was an element of control that you had to deal with, and you probably still deal with it from time to time. Just further letting go. And as we've talked about, Caleb, before, underneath control is always fear. You can't have control without fear being the underpinning of it. That's why we control. So there was a fear in place that maybe if you let go, that things would come crumbling down and that your reputation, your brand would be in fact negatively impacted. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then what I heard you say is that you had to get really clear on where you're wanting to go. So in other words, if this is what you're saying, I'm using my own languaging, but I want to make sure for the listener that we're really nailing this for them. If you don't know where the finish line is, how are you supposed to point everybody in that direction? So you had to like really kind of paint the picture of where is that finish line that we're going towards? Where's the goal so you could create the system that would get you to that goal? And is that the clarity piece you were talking about?
It is. And so getting everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction.
So what was clarity? What conclusion and what place did you come to that helped get things more clear?
Some of it was just being willing to slow down. I mean, I've got a pretty intense work life, and this is obviously a pretty intense industry, especially in light of everything that's gone on in the last several years. So it was getting really clear on what was important to me. And for me, that was hard because the background I was raised on, that I didn't come from a place that often said, well, what do you want? It was always giving to others. So stopping and going, well, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish out of all this, was very helpful in terms of production goals. What do I really need? What do I want that to look like? And from whom and from where do I want this business to come in? And getting back to, well, what would a perfect day look like? And then taking the genius zone thing that you taught us, which I think we all as loan officers in this industry understand return on investment easily, but it was also the return on energy piece, which is how do you feel after you've accomplished that? Well, nobody ever talks about their feelings. So that piece for me really helped click it all together of I'm only going to do the things that make me happy. Thankfully, most of those things also happen to coincide with the things that make me money. So then I need to make sure I'm surrounded by people that are bought in, understand the vision, and are true partners. Like I don't think of anybody here with me as an employee. They're all truly partners, and I've been very blessed because they all actually care. And I think that's very hard to find nowadays, and that's part of the reason I feel that we've been very successful recently, and I know we're going to continue to do great things and go even further. But getting clarity on that piece, and then sitting with each of the members on the team to go, well, how can we help tie this into what you want and want to accomplish? And then talking to realtors and going, what is it that would help you guys? And then clients, I mean, we survey them all, so we've got a pretty good idea of what it is that they're after and what they want. And so it's just, okay, how can we mesh all this together so that it comes together in the instant recognition of, aha, that's exactly what I was after. I don't even have to ask. I mean, we've all experienced that at some point in our lives where you go and do something. It's like, I felt safe. I felt taken care of. I didn't even have to worry or think about anything.
That's the definition of great service. So let me ask you this question. You've referenced your team and continue to reference it in such a humble way, which is really beautiful to hear. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are sitting there right now and they're saying, well, where do I find a team like that? You know, how can I assemble a team of superstars? And I'd be curious as to what your take is on that. So, you know, you didn't just get lucky. I mean, it doesn't happen like that. So what advice would you share with the listeners on how to assemble the right people on your team to support you? And why don't we just leave it at that? Why don't we just start there? What suggestions do you have?
I think one of the best advice I got over the years was hire slow and fire fast. And thankfully, I've never had to fire anybody yet. One of the things that was important to me, and this is one of my personal sayings, and I firmly believe and have operated this all of my career, is you have to build capacity ahead of demand. Otherwise, you just simply speed up at the pace at which the world finds out you don't know what you're doing. So when we went to go out and find people, firstly, I've had really good luck hiring past clients. So Kelly was one of my past clients, and Sandra was one of my past clients. And Nikki was somebody I had worked with closely for several years because when she was in banking, I was referring loans to her for second mortgages to assist me in getting my loans done. So I would say take your time. I think one of the things that we tend to do as a loan officer, and I'm guilty of this, is we get frantic, we get busy, and then we throw bodies at it and expect bodies to fix the problem. Well, if you don't have something in place to bring that person on, and I'm by no means perfect at this, and you can ask any of the girls, we're still getting better at this, but you've got to have, okay, this is what you're going to be doing when you come on board, and this is how you're going to help. Not, I'm super busy, you need to help me, fix it. So being clear about what it is you want that person to do, and then build that capacity ahead of the demand, versus going out and getting a bunch of demand and then trying to fix the capacity issue. And I think that gets you in that downward cycle where you hire quickly, you bring the wrong person in, you have a bad experience, now you're jaded about hiring somebody, or you have such a bad experience with your referral partners you end up going backwards, and it doesn't build on itself with the momentum like we've experienced. It's been a very, very good, positive experience for me in the sense of every time I brought a new team member on board as a partner, we've experienced great growth. I mean, if I look back over all the things we've done from marketing and things of that nature, there's been nothing that improves the bottom line better than a really good hire. And I think the disking profile thing is very, very helpful. I wasn't really aware of that until about my second hire in. So I hired Kelly and Sandra because they were past clients, and you get no better opportunity to see somebody in a stressful scenario than when you're doing a loan for them. Because think about it, their entire life is uprooted, and they're giving you all of their financials and trusting you. So you get to find out exactly how somebody performs because it's like being under fire, so to speak. And I recognize greatness in both of them. Kelly was a lights-out processor because she's the only person I've ever had that I was intimidated to do her loan because it literally showed up stacked, tabbed, and this is what you're going to do for me. And I was like, yes, ma'am. When do you want me to send the docs? And then for Sandra, she was just really, really great people. And at the time, we were beginning to experience some capacity constraints, so I knew we needed to bring somebody else on board. So I said, hey, you want to come work with me? And one of the things that she and I had discovered together over our years is making sure you get the right person in the right seat. So I had Sandra doing things initially that were not in her wheelhouse of strength or genius. And it made her unhappy, and we both knew that. And so we worked really hard to move her to a place where she's able to shine with her talents and strengths. You're never going to find anybody more creative than her. She's just a genius. That's part of the reason I'm so good at implementing, because I can come back and go, this is what I want to do. And I literally go, this is what I want to do, make it look pretty. And she makes it look lights out. And then with Nikki, I got an opportunity to see how she would perform because I had been referring business to her. So I knew how she would operate on the loan. And I've been trying to coax her to the dark side for several years. And she held out on me for a long time. And she came on board, and she's really been growing into her role as a production partner. I'm really excited to see when she comes to full maturity there. I just want her to work anymore. And then Amanda was somebody that Nikki had worked with, and when we brought her on board as that setup person and helping with everything, she's just been kicking butt and taking names. And she's been with us at September 1st, but it's already going like, why did I not do this sooner? And that should be, I think, the end result when you bring somebody on board. When you bring that right person on board at the right time, it's kind of like, oh, I should have done that a while ago. And it just clicks. So I know that was a long answer, but I hope that's helpful.
No, it's great. So it's just to summarize, and then team, I'm going to turn it over to anybody on the team that wants to answer the next question, with the exception of Caleb. But to summarize, two very important things that Caleb said that I want to just reemphasize. Number one, most of us hire fast and fire slow, and what we want to do is the exact opposite. We want to take our time to get the right person on the right spot on the bus, and we want to hire slow. And if we make a bad hire, we want to try to, cut the losses for both parties involved, including the person you hired, because they're not really ultimately happy if they're in a position that they're not supposed to be in. Everybody knows if they're not flourishing and thriving in that role anyway. So hire slow, fire fast. The other thing, and this is so big what you said, which is that you've got to build capacity before the production, and that involves trust. That involves a big leap of faith. I was just on a call yesterday with a client who's in Leadership 363 on this exact subject matter of trusting that if you bring that next hire aboard, which in his case was a transaction coordinator, to add to the team, which right now is just him and his processor, that if he brings that position that Nikki is currently holding, production partner, transaction coordinator, whatever you want to call that title, that it would further grow his capacity to talk to more people who need to borrow money. But it involves trust, and we keep coming back to that, which is the control freak in Caleb, trusting that if I bring somebody else aboard, that I will be able to generate more loans to then pay for that person. So team, and anybody who wants to speak up and speak to this is fine. What have you done to help Caleb trust, what are some of the things that you have noticed and that you've tried to do as a team? Because remember, there are going to be people that are listening to this interview that are team members, and they're going to be sitting there nodding their head going, yeah, I have a control freak loan officer too, and that's a part of the problem is that he won't get out of the files or she won't get out of the files. They're constantly leaning over my shoulder asking me what's going on. This is a common thing that we all experience, which is that loan officer coming from fear. What are some of the things that you guys have done to help Caleb trust you to where he can let go and go out and make it rain?
So that we don't all jump on each other here, I'll just kind of take it. This is Kelly, and I'm actually going to refer to Nikki because she's been very good since she came on at saying in our weekly meetings, give me more. Or, if there's a time when Caleb wasn't quite ready to hand off what he intended for her to do, she called him on it. And Sandra's pretty good at that too. So really just being honest with each other, knowing what you're supposed to do, and then saying to that person who's in control, for lack of a better term, let me do it. And then you, of course, have to do it and follow through. And do it like a professional, which everybody here does. So really that's the biggest thing is taking ownership of it and saying, that's mine, let me do it.
Kelly, let me ask you a question. Do you still find that there are times where you would prefer that Caleb would just trust even more and let go even more?
In my role, not so much. I mean, we've been working together long enough that I feel like that's never really an issue for us. I can't say for sure for anyone else. But, if it ever comes up on that file, I'll just say, let me do it. But not really, no.
How about you, Nikki? Do you still find that there are times where Caleb is still a little bit too much micromanaging the process or anything like that, or is he pretty clean and letting go at this point?
We still have our moments with different things. I wouldn't necessarily say he micromanages, but we always talk about passing the baton, and that was difficult in the beginning. But that is definitely that has improved so much, and I think that's I think we've all kind of struggled with that, not just Caleb, but. Yeah, I mean, occasionally things still come up, but just as Kelly was saying, I've been here long enough now that if I feel that, he's not letting go of something that I should have, I tell him.
Yeah, let me comment on that. I've told a lot of my clients this, that there reached a point in time in my team meetings where it got to the point where my processor or my transaction coordinator, if I was falling prey to that control stuff out of fear, and I was getting involved in their job description, and that there wasn't a crisp line between where my job ended and their job took over, and I was kind of bleeding into it. We had an understanding and agreement that if they looked at me straight in the eyes and they said to me in a nice but firm way, don't worry about it, I've got it covered, that I would back off and let go. And I would really encourage you guys as a team to try to come to some type of languaging that works for all of you, that is, just a real clear way of saying, hey, you know what, you're kind of in my space now, so trust me, I've got it covered. And in the case of Caleb, go back out and get 3 more loans for us so we can all make more money and have better job security, because that's kind of the name of the game. I'm not sure if it was Kelly or Nikki that just brought up the baton pass, and I want to go there because to me that's the vital piece of the entire process. So just to kind of walk everybody through this real quick and a quick review yet again of this team that we're talking to. So you've got Caleb, who is the consultant and the educator, the loan originator that gets people to say yes to him. He's got 2 amazing people on each side of him that handle the nurturing of the past customer database and some other activities such as scanning documents, et cetera, and the continued nurturing of the referral partner relationships. and they kind of branch off in an organizational chart from Caleb's box that is the first person in the relay race that we call the perfect loan process. So when the person says yes, it essentially goes over to Nikki. Nikki is in charge of making sure that the disclosures are signed, the proper documentation is requested, that the package is put together in an orderly way, and then she then hands it over to Kelly, who takes the loan into underwriting and proactively statuses everybody involved in the transaction and takes it to the finish line. If you don't have a clean baton pass, which is proper scripting and proper education communicated to the consumer and the referral partner, then you will have a muddled up system, because then you're going to have clients and referral partners calling you as the loan officer when the loan is no longer with you because it's now with Nikki, or maybe even worse off, it's already with Kelly in processing. And then what can really mess everything up is if the loan officer jumps back in and starts having side conversations with clients and referral partners, and then has to turn around and then inform Kelly of what their conversation was like. And before you know it, you've got great inefficiency and what we call baton drops, where there's communication is not as clean as it needs to be, and then there's confusion, and that results in poor customer service. So Caleb, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Nikki. How do you pass the baton to Nikki and exit from the process? So you've gotten the person to say yes, and now you effectively want to remove yourself from the process so she can do her job. What's your way of doing that and cleanly passing the baton to her?
And I'll start by saying this is one of the areas that we're still working the most on. So I would not say we by any means have it figured out, but we're working very hard on it. And some of it just came with the confidence to let them know that it doesn't have to be me handling everything. I think the fear is that we all, as a loan officer, it's been me for so long, it's my name, it's my brand, it's my reputation. So yeah, I can fix anything. Being comfortable with that, it's okay that somebody else can do just as good a job, if not better, than I can. So I think it's making sure that I tee up my partners, let them know they're just as good at this, if not better. And in a lot of ways, they're better, because as I get more and more removed from that, I don't have the reps under my belt, and you just get rusty. Whereas they're doing that every single day, and they will make sure that they aren't missing things that I might have missed. So it's letting that person know that I have a very high level of confidence in my partner, and that she's going to be stepping in to handle this from this point forward, and she's going to be your primary point of contact. That won't negate the fact that they will still call you. And this is the part I'm trying to work on, which is being comfortable with what you've said in the past, which is, I don't know the answer to that. Let me have Nikki call you, or let me have Kelly call you. Because I think the fear there is that people will start to feel irrelevant, and then, oh no, they might call the team. Well, that's the perfect place to be, and I'm comfortable with that because I know I've got great people behind me. But it's being very clear with the client who's going to handle what in what stage, and then teeing that partner up for greatness about how wonderful they are. And if that client has any confidence in me, they can have just as much confidence in Nikki or Kelly, because I have confidence in them.
Caleb, what just occurred to me as I was listening closely to everything that you were saying is that the trickiest part for you, unlike, frankly, most loan officers, because most loan officers are not as detail-oriented and granular in their knowledge of underwriting and documentation and all of that. I mean, your personality profile, with you having a high C, really lends to that, plus your background of being an accountant and really understanding how to read financial documentation, et cetera. It makes it a little bit of a tricky thing for you, because essentially you've given up that role of or in the process of shedding that role that you've now groomed Nikki for and that you've brought her aboard to take, not because you weren't doing it well. Not because, most loan originators need to get that role filled because it's just really not their genius. I mean, they're not really very good at it, at pre-underwriting a file and taking a thorough application and being patient to go over disclosures and answer people's questions and all that. But those are things that you actually are good at, but you've brought her aboard to just create greater capacity and make your job description personally more finite and have it be as high impact as possible. So there's a little trickiness to that for you because you have this natural tendency, I think, to want to stay somewhat involved in that part of the process because you are good at it and you know the importance of it. That I don't know script that you just referenced that's so important is maybe needs to be reframed for you personally just slightly to say something like, gosh, I know I wanted, the truth is the easiest script, right? There's nothing to memorize. So we've talked about this before too. So it's like, gosh, you know what? I want to jump in and answer your question, but I'm afraid that I might not answer it as accurately as is necessary because Nikki is the expert on my team in that area, and I don't want to do something or say something that could subsequently result in us not having the highest level of service possible for you. The key final piece to that is to know that you're getting them to Nikki in a customer service oriented way. So it's not something along the lines of here's her direct line, give her a call, or let me transfer you to her voicemail. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that, or I do know the answer to that, but one of the commitments that I have with my team is to make sure that everybody on our team is functioning in their highest level of expertise as possible, and Nikki is the expert on our team when it comes to these types of questions. So I see that she's on the phone right now. I'm going to put a note in front of her to ask her to make you her next return phone call, or she's available right now. May I transfer you directly to her? For you to be able to get just really comfortable with the fact that you're not passing them off, you're not displaying ignorance on your part in an area that you are truly knowledgeable, but that you are abiding by what you know ultimately to be the most important rules within your team to provide the highest level of customer service possible. Because the minute that you start to enter into her job description, as we've talked about, it creates a lot of challenges with dysfunction and the baton being dropped. Is that something that might be a little bit slightly different way to do it for you that might work a little easier?
Yeah, it's a lot more palatable to my ego.
Well, yeah, I get that. I mean, and I get that in a really cool way, not like in a, yes. I mean,
yeah,
you're
not
really
being a jerk about it. I mean, it's just, you're right. I mean, the challenge is that's definitely something from my zone of confidence, and it's my nature when I see a problem, I want to jump in and fix it. So I have to fight that, and I like that way better. It also values and uplifts all the partners on the team and validates them to that client as well.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing, how you pass that baton. So, again, for everybody listening, Caleb's having the high trust conversations with the people, educating them, going through the numbers with them, advising them on their financial choice, helping them manage their debt decision, and then when they say yes, he's moving it over to Nikki. Now, Nikki, you're in charge of, disclosures, packaging, pre-underwriting, et cetera. And then there comes a point in time, I would imagine shortly or right after the point where they sign their disclosures and their application and they've returned all this paperwork to you, that you're saying, okay, this thing is ready to be handed over to processing so Kelly can do her job. How do you pass the baton to Kelly so that client isn't continually calling you now when the loan's now no longer on your desk and in processing?
I do a lot of what Caleb just said. When I talk with the client, I just set that expectation that Kelly will be getting their file next, that she's going to review it, she's going to be reaching out to them. So basically they have that expectation up front, and they know that she's going to be working in their file going forward. And I sort of pull Caleb out of it at that point as well. So they're always welcome to call Caleb, but Kelly is going to be, really their point of contact going forward.
Can I give you some coaching on that, if you don't mind? So
absolutely.
Okay, so on the phrase "they're always welcome to call Caleb," I would suggest that you guys revisit that and refine it to be, Caleb is always available to talk to you as it relates to any of the financial decisions that you're making regarding this loan. When it comes to questions about documentation, disclosures, paperwork, etc., from this point forward, Kelly would be the person that you'd want to talk to. And the reason is because the more that you're leaving it kind of broad, the more that we're putting Caleb in the situation where he has to implement that I don't know script. The more that we're saying, hey, anytime that, of course, Caleb's here for you anytime you need him, they're going to call Caleb, and now Caleb's going to have to go, well, you know what, I can't get involved in the file because I'm kind of violating the rules of our system, and now I've got to go to that uncomfortable place of saying I don't know, which he just disclosed isn't particularly comfortable. So I think that in the scripting, it's super important to do two things on the baton pass. Number one is that you want to sell the credibility of the person that you're passing the baton to. So the next person that you're going to be talking to on our team, and I'm so excited for you to meet her, is Kelly. We're so blessed to have her as our processor. She's been in the business for 17 years. She's absolutely phenomenal at talking with underwriters, packaging the loan, communicating to the closing agent, and both realtors involved in the transaction. You're going to really love working with her. From this point forward and through the closing, Kelly's going to be your main point of contact and the person that you're going to want to talk to. If there are any questions that you have as it relates to the financial decisions of this loan, the loan program itself, etc., you're always welcome to give Caleb a call to discuss those things. That's his expertise, as he shared with you before as he was introducing you and I to each other. But if there's anything in regards to the paperwork and the file or the closing date or any of those types of things, the final closing costs, etc., Kelly will now be your point of contact from this point forward until we close. Now we've made it really clear to them that only call Caleb for these things, which will reduce the number of phone calls that he gets and the amount of times that he then subsequently has to say, I don't know, which isn't particularly comfortable for him or really for any loan officer for that matter. And then the second thing is that by building up Kelly's credibility, because, see, you can say things about Kelly that Kelly could never say about herself without it sounding like she's egoic and arrogant, but you can really sell her as being an expert, which makes her job so much easier. It's going to make them so much more receptive to meeting her, asking her questions, communicating with her, because you've given her supreme credibility as the expert processor that's going to take this loan to the finish line. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love the way that sounds. That's something that I'll definitely put into practice.
Yeah, and just use your own words, Nikki, as to don't. I always tell people this, use my script as a model, but not. You don't have to copy it verbatim because you want to use your own languaging. But that's the essence of it. Let's talk a little bit about how you guys learn as a team and how you continue to grow and evolve the process. So, Caleb, I know from our coaching that you have team meetings. What are you guys doing on a fairly consistent basis to look at the mistakes, quote unquote, we call mistakes, that you're making, and how are you learning from them to continue to evolve this process? And when I say that, all five of you, to get better at communicating with the database, to get better at communicating with realtors, to get more efficient in general with the way that you process loans. How are you doing that?
I think the first key to that really being magical like we have here is making sure that everybody feels safe in that conversation, because that can get negative very quickly. And I always try to make sure that it is coming from a place of positivity of, look, we made a mistake. I think the key is to own it. And I think it's not the fact that we don't ever make mistakes that separates us from the industry, and I think it's true for everybody. I think it's how you fix them. And so we want to fix them with grace, elegance, and professionalism. Same thing, we also want to learn from them so that we don't repeat them. So is there something that either I'm doing as the originator that I need to improve upon, or was there something in the process from a system standpoint or infrastructure that's not supporting you in doing this with excellence? Just have a bad day, that type of thing, and then making it a safe place where they can answer that with honesty and not overreacting. I always want to make sure that we are the best version of ourselves. Like, I don't really care about competing with everybody else in the industry. What I want to do is achieve the best version of what we're capable of. And when we achieve that, awesome. And if we're not there, then let's continue to work to improve that.
Yeah, I love that. And there's maybe a reframe that we could all embrace, all being myself and the 5 other people on this call and everybody listening, which is, are there really ever any true mistakes that we're making? Or if held properly, are they just opportunities for learning? And how can we foster a environment where we're not punitive with the quote-unquote error, we're actually somewhat celebratory with it if, in fact, we can see the learning in it and identify the learning. And what I mean by that would be, like, what would a meeting among your team look like if, when you have your pipeline meeting once a week, if you carve out like an extra 15 minutes at the end, or tack on an extra 15 minutes at the end, and you go around and say, okay, what did you learn this week? And everybody was able to share, what, I really learned that it's super important. I'll just give you an example for Amanda. I have no idea if this ever happens, but I really realized how vital it is for me to, actually, I'm so dating myself right now because everybody has a cell phone. So that example that I was just going to give is like 15 years old of something that we dealt with in Amanda's position. Let's just cool in a more what's that, buddy?
Beepers aren't cool anymore, man.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say something about not getting the new home phone number. Which used to be a challenge of ours, is that if we weren't proactive in contacting the client before they moved out of their house, we may miss the opportunity to get their new home phone number, and then we got to chase them down at work, which is never a real good thing to do because you don't want to be bothering people at work with things like that. And this was before email was prevalent and before cell phones were in everybody's wheelhouse. So let's just take a more generic sense and say, like, Kelly just comes forward and says, gosh, one of the things that I learned this week was that I need to do a little bit more thorough job of reviewing the bank statements because I missed an NSF charge on one of the bank statements, and it would have been much better for me to pull that and get a VOD so we didn't have to go through the headache because it really caused a great deal of inefficiency and poor customer service because we had to have borrowers write explanation letters and these types of things. And if in that sharing it's safe, as you said, Caleb, and that's the key thing for everybody listening. It's like you can't be, going leaning back in your chair and rolling your eyes and going, God, not again. I mean, that's not going to make it safe for anybody to ever want to come forward and share what they've learned. But if in that space you go, great job. I mean, that's a good catch. Okay, cool. What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen anymore? That's how you're going to make your system more and more refined and that much more efficient. And I'm hoping that this makes sense to everybody on the team. Is there anybody that has any comment on that or any feedback, or does that all sound pretty reasonable?
This is Sandra. I think it's important to make sure that as you're reviewing the systems that's what you're reviewing. That you're looking at the process, and the conversation is always on the process and the systems and not on the person. And it's like, what happened, not you. I like to say take the word you out of any discussion that's going on and keep it neutral. I think that creates a safe environment for people to come forward because you're looking at the issues, not blame.
Wow, what a great statement. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. It's like there's no I in team, right? I mean, we're just one organism here, and we all affect each other by our performance. And if everybody is openly looking at how they can do their job better, and as Caleb defined earlier, we know where the finish line is. We have clarity on where we're wanting to go, and we can get everybody on the same page with, that's where we want to go as a team, because as a team, if we go there, we're all going to benefit. So let's talk about that, actually. That's perfect tip, Sandra. Thank you. So, there is no individual. We're looking at the system. How can we make the system better? There's nothing personal about the evaluation of the system. Caleb, and for the rest of the team, how did you get your team? And again, everybody on the team, welcome to speak up and share what what their experience was with this. How did you get buy-in? Like, how did you get these 5 people, including yourself, to say, yeah, this is where we want to go? Because one of the things that I do hear from time to time from loan originators is I can't get my team to want to do what I want to do. I can't get them to see the importance of us having a system in the first place. So, Caleb, maybe you can start by sharing what you said, and then I would love feedback from the other 4 people on this call to share, like, why was it that you were willing to go in this direction? What was it about the way that it was presented that made it comfortable for you to change the way you were doing business?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to answer it for myself. I'm not going to try to speak for the girls. I think it starts first and foremost with not being too egotistical in the sense of that it's important to let them feel like it is theirs. It's not my team or my business. It's all of our businesses. We are truly a team and a group of partners working together to accomplish what it is that we want to accomplish. So I've tried to always be very, very flexible and open within parameters of what is it that we want to try to get to and accomplish. So it's not me dictating. It's me really helping arrive at a decision with everybody agreeing and buying into it. I think it also starts even more fundamentally than that in bringing great people and the right people in. If you bring in the wrong people, you'll never get buy-in because it was never there to begin with. So I think that's even more fundamental in that. But then if you have great people, let them achieve what they're capable of. I mean, let them reach their true greatness. Don't hold them back. And don't have such an ego that it has to all be you. And buy-in happens. I mean, it's not something I've had to really work at. I mean, I'm looking at all 4 of them here, and it's just like it's been easy because they care and they get it, and they're awesome.
Kelly, I want to thank you, Caleb. And Kelly, I want to jump over to you because it strikes me that perhaps of anybody on the team, you're the one who maybe has to modify your job description as much, if not more than anybody, because now you're really responsible for that proactive customer service and communicating with the borrowers and the referral partners and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of processors aren't used to doing those things. And I'd be curious, like, whatever changes you've made from what you were used to in the past, and it would be cool if you could identify a few of those for all of us listening, what made it palatable for you to make those changes, and what did Caleb do or say to help you really get bought into it?
Well, I think I've always been in an environment where customer service was key. I came from that, and that really wasn't much of a change for me. The difference is maybe in just some of the specific ways that we do it. One of the things, and it's actually ongoing right now, and as of December 1st, implementing it, that Caleb specifically wanted to change about my role, and I'm very guilty of it, is that I'm very dependent on email. It's convenient. It's easy. I can do it the second I'm thinking of it. But he felt that, and he's right, that we lost some of our personal touch by relying on it so heavily. So part of my communication now is to make sure that at least once a week I am reaching out to both clients and realtors with a phone call, not just an email. And to be honest with you, I was a little reluctant because of the time investment in it. But I actually started doing those within the last week, and I do think that I already saw it. Just for example, today I left a message for a realtor who I've been emailing with updates since the file started. But she got my message, and she immediately called me back because hearing my voice on her message made her think of something. So she called me, and she got my voicemail and left me a message and said, I'm glad that you called, and I just remembered something I needed to tell you. So part of the buy-in is, there is some level of trust where Caleb's been doing this long enough that if he makes a point and he wants to try something that maybe I'm not overjoyed with, I'm going to do it. A, it is Team LeGrand, and B, I trust that, he's got vision and I'm a part of that, so I do it. And usually, 99% of the time, he's right, and already I'm seeing the result of that. So
I'm writing that down on December 10th.
We do give him a hard time. It keeps his ego manageable, but
let me
right.
give you. That's a great example that you give, Kelly, and let me just give you some feedback on that too, which is that I think ultimately you're going to find that one extra phone call that you might make per file, to that realtor, or once a week even, I think you described, more often than not you're going to get voicemail, first of all. And that's going to take you all of about 60 seconds to leave a message and just a friendly hello and an update on the file proactively. But I think what you're going to find are a couple of things are going to be the indirect result of that in the long run. Number one is that you're going to be more humanized. So in other words, if you're hiding behind email as a processor, when it comes to, a difficult situation, I think you're going to find that person is going to be a little bit kinder towards you if they've heard your voice and have even had a brief conversation with you that was friendly, when 2 weeks later maybe you have a little hiccup on the file, than if they have no knowledge of who you are, they've never experienced you before, and all they've ever viewed you as is just a bunch of letters that show up in their email box that you're typing to them. So that's number one. Number two is that I think that you're going to find that, as we've talked so many times before, that the reactivity will be cut down upon substantially if you're proactively leaving that voicemail. So if, like, every Monday you're statusing your realtors on the files in process as to what's up and what's happening, I think you're going to find a pretty substantial reduction in inbound correspondence of questions because you're getting in front of it and communicating that in a proactive way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I commend you and applaud you for such a good example you give, because you really highlighted something that, you have some resistance towards it. And I appreciate your honesty of saying, I really don't want to do it, but I'm trusting Caleb that he's right on this one. And, I think that's a really admirable quality, is that you're willing to be flexible and you're willing to kind of stretch yourself into areas that might not be as normal for you as in the past. How about anybody else on the team? Nikki, Amanda, Sandra, any comments on how you have adjusted to buying into a new way of doing things, and what you think the reasons were that it was easier to do so in the way that Caleb approached it?
This is Nikki. I will just add to what Kelly said. We all actually had this conversation not very long ago in regards to, making the phone calls and rather than sending an email for certain things. And I found that I was pretty guilty of that as well. A lot of times in scheduling my appointments to meet with clients, I wanted to send an email and do it in that manner. But I've started making the phone calls more, and I have found that it's really just a better way of doing it. I mean, I like the word that you used. It humanizes us, and they get a feel for you when they speak with you, hear your voice over the phone. So that's something I've put into practice, and that's something that Caleb had encouraged me to do, and I was just a little reluctant. Email is just easier. So that's a change that I've made recently as well, and it's been good. It's been a good change.
One of the things, too, that you can do that just kind of popped into my head, and I've been starting to play around with this myself within my business, is, for the realtors that you have, their cell phone number, which I would imagine would be most of them, you can just grab your phone. And, with those of you that have iPhones, I don't know about the Samsung devices or the Androids, but the iPhone, you have this, really cool new feature where you just tap on the button and you can record an audio message and then just text it over to them. That's, in my mind, something worth considering, too. I mean, I personally think that if I'm a real estate agent and I get a text from you with an update on what's happening on your file, and I can listen to it in my car while I'm driving to show property or going to pick up a client to show property or driving into work or whatever, that's a lot more convenient than having to read an email. and I think it's actually more efficient on your end because I would imagine that you could probably talk faster than you can type. And then lastly is that humanizing aspect, which I'll comment on real quick, Nikki, which is that I really realized that one of the key things that I did with my team a long time ago, so about every 6 months or so, and Sandra probably would be a good person to maybe get behind doing something like this if you're not already doing it, but I would have about every 6 months or so we'd have just a little gathering over breakfast at a nice location where my team and I would host a breakfast for our main referral partners. And there wouldn't really be any business agenda to it other than to just connect. And to have my referral partners be able to associate, face and name with, with the voice that they keep hearing on the phone or the emails that they keep reading. And, I'd have my team get up for just a couple of minutes like you guys did at the top of this call and just introduce themselves to the new people in the room and share what you do. But boy, it made such a substantial difference in the way that they were then treated by my referral partners during the transactions in the future. Because now they're another human being just like them. And they would comment to me all the time. It's like, wow, that really works a lot because now we're not feeling like the same level of disconnect and negative energy at times when it's a stressful situation because they know who I am, they know what I look like. We had breakfast together. There's a little bit more of a human connection there. I want to scoot over to Amanda now for a moment if we can, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about how you nurture the database. And I don't know if you're the person responsible for sending out the Caleb, is that bag sent out at approval or at closing that you sent to me?
That's sent out post-closing. That's our 60-day post-closing gift, and that's actually something Sandra does.
Okay, great. Well, then
I think that would be a better question for Sandra if you're wanting to tee up the database. That's really more in Sandra's wheelhouse. Amanda is doing much more the setup, facilitate all of that. The nurturing is really being done by Sandra and myself.
Got it. Okay, so Sandra is handling the nurturing of both the database and the referral partners. Amanda is responsible for making sure that the integrity of the data is in there so you have the ability to send out stuff to the people, right?
She is the I dot or the T crosser and make sure that we have true clean data in to have great data out, and she's phenomenal at that.
Okay, so we'll toss it to Sandra in a second, but let's stay with Amanda. And I just want to ask, Amanda, anything that you could share that you think is really important as it relates to that just some tricks of the trade, if you will, things that you found that is vital to making sure that the integrity of that data is there, and how are you going about gathering it in an efficient way?
Really, what I would just say is you pay attention and you check twice. And I make lists of things that I need to go back and check because one thing I may skip to something and totally miss a step. So even to this day, I have a chart, and I'll go and check off as I do things.
So do you have a little checklist for each file of the important things that you need to make sure that you get so you guys have the right database information?
I do, and I have Post-it notes everywhere just to make sure that I am a triple and double and triple checker. I don't trust myself, so I have to write down everything I do and look it over 2, 3, 4 times to make sure it's correct. Because if I mess up, it messes up the whole stream.
Amanda, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the years. I was talking to one actually yesterday who was sharing with me, the problem is that I don't have accurate email addresses, or the problem is we never got their, new phone numbers, or, we don't have accurate loan information. It's very pervasive, and it's, Caleb's really lucky to have someone like you on his team that is really thorough and diligent in that and sees the importance of that because, as we said before, that's the lifeblood of the future of the business, and if you don't have accurate information, there's no way to market to them. So the one thing that I would say is that, and I didn't mention this to you, Caleb, I don't believe, but I think you're going to like it, is that in the next 60 days, Julie, who's an executive coach, for those of you listening that don't know, who's executive coach on my team. She facilitates the Leadership 360 program with me, and we'll be facilitating the team workshop that we referenced. She's going to actually sit and shadow 3 different teams in the next 60 days here in Southern California, teams of loan originators that I know. And the main reason for her doing that is Julie's a productivity whiz, and really, really strong with technology and Excel and all that kind of stuff. And she's just going to be looking for areas of inefficiency within the team facilitation of a loan. Everything from what Amanda was just describing to all the way through the process to Kelly's position. And we're going to be building some kind of proprietary tools to give out at the workshop that are just going to help everybody just become more proficient and make their job easier. So when I hear Post-it notes, Amanda, I think that our goal would be to get you into something that is a little safer, because if that sticky thing wears off and it falls underneath a chair, you may miss that vital piece of information. But thanks for sharing that. Sandra, if you could tell us a little bit about the database, what you do to nurture it, and then describe for us this amazing 60-day post-closing gift that I received in the mail a few weeks ago that I put a big smile on my face, because there are a lot of things in that bag that I really am a big fan of.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, first of all, we have on our database the ability to give me pings to say, and I'll put program it to say 60 days out, make sure so-and-so gets a bag. So I get those updates, but the other thing is Caleb will also give me a list of the clients that that we've closed. So I kind of do it monthly. I'll make labels for everybody that I need to send out for the month that closed 2 months prior. And I'll put it in Excel, and I'll make my labels, and I get my boxes ready. And the gift that we give out, Caleb came and said he wanted to do a post-closing gift for all of our clients, and we wanted it something that they could use. He gave me a budget for it. So I started thinking about all the things that I had ever been given in the past. And my junk drawer, we all have junk drawers, and it was like, what's still in there? What have I not thrown away? And a lot of it has advertising on it. So that's kind of where I started. And I was like, what are those things? So we all use bag clips, and I have bag clips with all different kinds of advertising on them. And we put in the rubber jar opener things, Mm-hmm. Everybody has one of those, and they get used for all different kinds of things, sink stoppers, opening jars, whatever. It's just something you don't throw away. So I started thinking about what is the stickiness. So there's a bag clip in there. There is the jar opener. There's a little screwdriver that you can put in your purse or in the car. It has multiple tips on it. There's a small first aid kit. I had been given one of those, and it's got a name on it, and you open it up. It's just kind of like a small wall. It's got Band-Aids and some wipes, and I keep one of those in my car and one in my purse. And people always tell me, oh, you always have something. So that's another thing that was really sticky. We came up with that. What else is in there? There's the cutting
ice scraper.
The ice scraper. I have scrapers everywhere. I keep them in my craft room, in the garage, in the kitchen, because you're always using your fingernails, and if you can keep from that happening. So all those things are just things that we could put his name on that were fairly inexpensive, but stuff that we felt that a new home buyer could use. When I came up with the idea, I made a list. We all discussed it because we do that as a team. Do you use this at your house? Is it stuck around your house? What about this? And then I thought, well, I've got to find a way to package this. I don't want to just take these things and stick them in a box, because that just would look like a big box of junk. So as I was looking through it, I didn't want it to come across that way. So we're looking at it. So they had a small lunch sack that I could put it in, and that made a nice container, and it was something that was usable. It's not an overly expensive. They could take anywhere in the car, camping, on the boat, whatever. So it was a nice way to put all of those things. And then Caleb and I, we worked on what we wanted it to say and made a flyer to go inside there. And it was collaborative effort. So we were like, okay, we're all homeowners. And we added up how many years we had owned homes together. And these are things that we use around our house. So then Caleb said, well, everybody take one and who uses what. And we made a quote for why that's important to us, what we use it for. And then Caleb put a couple.
Let's elaborate slightly further, because that's my favorite part of this bag.
Okay.
So just to paint the picture for everyone seeing, you get this bag 60 days after closing, and it has all these cool things in it that everybody uses, and that have the logo of the team on all of them. So it's like every time you're opening up a jar or putting your chip clip on your bag of chips, or whatever the screwdriver, etc. It's like you're constantly reminded of this team that did this wonderful job of doing your mortgage. But the part that I loved so much, Sandra, was the quotes, because each of you had a quote for each of the items in the bag, but they weren't just quotes; they were really funny. I mean, I had a really good laugh when I was reading them. I mean, there was very good wit and humor to it. Give us an example of one of them, because I think that that's a really important piece, because I can't believe that when people receive that, they pull that card out and they read your quotes on how you use them, that they don't have a good laugh, which is, laughter is a secret weapon. You make somebody laugh, you've got them, and you own them. That's intimacy. Give us a couple examples of some of the quotes on these different items.
I think Nikki had one, and hers is, we always tell her she's little and mean. So that was one of her quotes, was that this item is little and mean like she is. And I'm trying to what was it? Which one was it?
She had the cutting board.
She had the cutting board, right. And she goes, it's little and mean like her.
Little and mighty.
Mighty
like her.
Yeah, because it's a tiny little cutting board. If you can envision this, those who are listening, tiny cutting board, and then Nikki's quote on it is, "This thing is little and mighty like me," and it's just so funny. Yeah, I really love that.
Kelly had one with the jar opener that she's always using this around the house so she doesn't get a hernia.
Exactly. Yeah, they were really well done.
They're all so true professional pros. Like, you would never think that they had that in them. So that's why it's such a great piece to send post-closing, because they realize it does help humanize us even further. It's like, oh, they really are mistakes.
That's right. Okay, so we're coming down the home stretch here, and we're pretty much at the hour and a half mark. But and I want to let you guys go, because I don't want your production to drop back down below 20 loans a month because of this interview. But I just want to see if there's anything else that anybody would like to share. You guys have been wonderful, and again, thank you so much for taking the time. And I know that the people that listen to this call are going to get a lot of great ideas. Is there anything that anybody would like to either share that they think is important, or ask of me, just in terms of any feedback or coaching advice that I could give you pertaining to any of the subject matters that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I could say something, because I can always say something. This is Sandra. Having taught for 35 years, and knowing the importance of organization and having systems in place, and I've said this to Caleb before, I wouldn't work for him if we didn't have the systems that we have in place. I think they're so vital to making things flow, to make people feel efficient, to make people feel successful. And the fact that there is a vision within the team, so that we collaborate and know where we're going and what we want to do. And then I think one of the things that we left out is, during our meetings, we always talk, what is our objectives? What is it that we're striving for? Why are we doing this? And I think when you know why you're doing something, you get buy-in, a little bit on that buy-in. But the fact that the systems are in place, because there's a lot of different components to this, this process. And I think it shows the clients that you've got it handled. And I just think that's so vital. And it comes through in everything that you do, because you always know what the next step is. So I just can't stress enough how important I think systems are.
So well said. I mean, just getting really clear on the why and revisiting it on a consistent basis as a team, that's a part of getting everybody on the same sheet of music. I mean, if everybody is tied down to a common goal and purpose that is driving the behavior and activity in the system itself, then you're going to have a system that works, I think, all that much more efficiently. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we wind this down?
I mean, it's hard to follow what Sandra said. I mean, I'll finish it off with, again, I'm just really, really blessed with the people I have to work with. I think it makes this crazy industry a whole lot of fun. So, I mean, I wish everybody could have what I have, just as long as you're not in Greenville, South Carolina.
Well, let me say this, and I'll close with this, and this is the part that I really want to be heard, as loud as anything else on this 90 minutes that we were together. I am a firm believer in the fact that you have a great team because you care about them. I know from a year and 2 months ago when I first met you, and have known this consistently throughout the entire time that I've known you, how much you really, truly want them to be happy, and how you really look at them in the same way that you look at your clients. You really want to do a great job for them. You really want their job to be as enjoyable as possible, and you really do revere and care about them. And I think that for all the loan originators that are listening, I just want to ask you to ponder, is a part of any challenge that you're having a result of you maybe not having stepped back from everything and taken a real look at how you can serve your team? Because if you can serve your team and treat them as if they were the best customer that you could possibly ever have, then I think that they'll be a lot more willing to go to battle with you and to be receptive to the things that you would like to do to grow and build for the benefit of everyone. And so, Caleb, I mean, really, you deserve a lot of credit in this. You are blessed to have a wonderful team, but I think that it's very clear that they love working for you too. So compliments to you for being a good leader, and that's an important thing to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I wanted to say thank you to all 5 of you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and I want to wish you happy holidays as well. I hope that everybody has a beautiful Christmas and a happy New Year, and I'm super excited to spend time with you in March. And if there's anything that I can personally do to help, you guys, I'm just a phone call away. You don't have to have a scheduled time with me or anything. Shoot me an email, text me, let me know that you want to, jump on a call and ask a quick question. It would be my honor to reciprocate, and is my way of saying thank you for taking the time to help teach. And for those listening, happy holidays to you too. I hope that you've received tremendous benefit. I'm sure you have from listening to this call. And to Team LeGrand, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Happy
holidays.
Okay, everybody, happy holidays, and thanks for listening to this Coach's Corner. Next month we'll have Craig Strent in January. That'll be another amazing interview, I'm sure. Take care.